The room was dark. Cold metal walls stood around the slaves like a prison that had no end. The air was heavy, filled with dust from the mines. Every breath hurt, every sound echoed with the cries of those who had no freedom. Among them was a girl. Her skin was pale, her body thin, and her eyes empty. She was not human. She belonged to a race that had once been proud, but now she was only a tool. Her name was lost to time. Even she did not remember it clearly. The masters never asked, and the slaves never spoke of who they had been before. Every day was the same. Wake up when the alarm screamed. Carry the tools. Dig in the dark tunnels. Drag the stones. Return to the cage at night. Sleep on the floor. With nothing but pain as a blanket. She lived like this for years, so long that days and nights blurred together. The guards were cruel. They shouted, they struck, they punished. The girl never cried anymore. Tears had dried long ago. Her heart had turned silent. She believed life was only chains, and death was the only escape. But something was different tonight. The slaves were pushed back into the cages after long hours of labor. Usually, they fell asleep quickly, too tired to even whisper. But tonight, the guards dragged in someone new. It was a man, a human. His hands were tied, his face bruised, but his eyes were still alive. The girl noticed him from the corner of her eye. He walked differently, not like a slave who had been broken. Even in chains, he carried himself like he had not given up. The guards laughed and pushed him into the cage next to hers. Another fool, one guard said. He will learn pain soon. The girl looked away. She had seen many slaves come and go. Some died fast, others lasted longer. But in the end, all hope died. She did not care who he was. She did not care why he was here. Nothing mattered anymore. But when the guards left and the silence returned, the man whispered. "Hello," he said softly. The girl did not answer. No one ever spoke in the cages unless forced. Speaking meant punishment if the guards heard. Still, the man continued. "I know you can hear me. I am not here to give up." She turned her face toward him, frowning. Not here to give up. She thought bitterly, everyone gives up. That is the truth of this place. But then she saw it. His lips curved into a small smile. A smile. Inside chains, inside darkness, inside pain, he smiled. Something stirred inside her chest. Something she had not felt in years. Confusion, curiosity, even a little anger. Why would he smile here? The girl lay back down, trying to ignore him. But sleep did not come easily. She kept thinking about his eyes, about that smile. She hated it, yet she could not forget it. The next day in the tunnels, she saw him again. He worked slower than the others, but not with weakness. He worked with purpose, like every movement was part of a plan. When guards pushed him, he stumbled, but did not break. When they cursed at him, he did not lower his eyes. The girl dug at the rocks, her hands bleeding, her body aching. But her thoughts kept drifting toward the human. She asked herself questions she never wanted to ask. Why does he still fight? What does he know that I do not? That night, she finally spoke. "Why? Do you smile?" Her voice was dry, broken from silence. The man turned his head toward her. His face was tired, but his eyes still burned. "Because chains cannot hold the spirit," he said. "They only hold the body." The girl almost laughed. She wanted to call him a fool, but his words sank deep inside her. Spirit. Ah. She had no spirit left. Ah. Or maybe she had just forgotten it. For the first time in years, she could not fall asleep easily. His words kept echoing in her mind. Oh, his smile kept haunting. The chains were still heavy. The guards were still cruel. The darkness was still endless, but something had changed, and the girl could not understand why. The next morning. The sky above the mining planet was still gray, but no one looked up. No one cared about the sky. Deep underground, the slaves returned to their work. The air was heavy with dust, and the smell of sweat and pain filled the tunnels. The alien girl walked slowly, dragging her feet. Her back hurt. Her arms were weak. But something inside her felt different. She looked around the tunnel until she saw him, the human. He was already working, swinging his hammer at the hard stone. His hands were bleeding, but he didn't stop. His eyes still carried that strange fire. That same quiet strength. She stared. Why doesn't he cry like the others? Why doesn't he break? Later, when the guards weren't watching, the human did something that shocked her. He reached into his dirty shirt and pulled out a tiny piece of dried bread. Just a few bites. It's not enough for even one full meal. He looked around. Then, he leaned close to the bars that separated his cage from hers. "Take it," he whispered, holding it out. The girl froze. Was this a trick? Was he mocking her? She stared at the bread, then at his face. "No," she said. Her voice was low and unsure. "Keep it." But he pushed it through the space in the bars anyway. "I've had worse days," he said softly. "You look like you need it more." She took it slowly, like it might disappear. She hadn't tasted real food in weeks. That night, she ate the bread in silence. She didn't say thank you. She didn't know how days passed. The human kept speaking to her in short, soft words. Not too much, not too fast. Just enough to break the silence. And the girl. She started listening. "My name is Jonah," he said one night. She didn't answer. "You must have a name too," he added. "Before the chains, before the pain." She looked away. "I don't remember," she whispered. But it wasn't true. Somewhere deep inside, she still remembered. A name once spoken with love. A name shouted. By family long gone. But she wasn't ready to speak it. Not yet. One evening, she saw him kneel beside a dying old slave. The man was coughing blood. The guards ignored him, but Jonah didn't. He gave the old man water, spoke to him softly, held his hand. The girl watched from the shadows. Why? Why does he care? No one cares in this place. Not anymore. The next morning, the old man was gone, carried out with the bodies, but Jonah still smiled. Not because he was happy, but because he had done something good. That night, for the first time, the girl sat closer to him. "Why do you help others?" she asked. Jonah looked at her. His face was tired, but calm. "Because helping is the only power I still have," he said. "They can take my freedom. They can beat my body. But they can't stop me from being human." She didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken like that to her. Not in the mines. Not in years. The next day, something unexpected happened. A guard dropped a heavy bag of tools near the girl's foot. It hit her hard. She fell, wincing in pain. The guard laughed. "Get up, freak!" But before she could move, Jonah stepped forward. "She's injured," he said. "Let her rest. I'll take her work for now." The tunnel fell silent. Other slaves stopped and stared. The guard's face twisted with anger. "You want more lashes, human?" Jonah didn't flinch. "I'm just saying, crack." The whip landed hard on Jonah's back. He gasped, but didn't scream. The girl's hands trembled. She had seen whippings before, but no one had ever taken one for her. That night, she'd cleaned the wound on his back with her sleeve and a few drops of stolen water. "You're a fool," she said quietly. "I've been called worse," he replied. Smiling through the pain, they both sat in silence. The chains were still tight. The darkness still deep. But now, something had changed. The girl began to feel something strange. Something she had not felt in years. Warmth. It was not love. Not yet. It was not trust. But it was the beginning. The first crack in the wall she had built around her heart, and all it took was kindness. The nights in the slave camp were always cold, silent, heavy with fear. But this night felt different. The alien girl sat with her back against the wall, staring into the darkness. Her body ached, but her mind was restless. Jonah's voice echoed. In her thoughts, they can't stop me from being human. Chains only hold the body, not the spirit. She had never believed in hope. Not here, not in this place. But now, something small had begun to grow inside her. A whisper, a question. Could there be something more than this life? The next day, as the sun rose behind smoke-filled skies, the guards shouted again. The slaves were pushed into the tunnels. Another day of pain. The girl walked beside Jonah. They didn't speak. Speaking during work was dangerous, but their eyes said enough. She noticed his hands, still wounded from the whip, still working. That evening, when they returned to their cages, Jonah leaned closer. His voice was low, almost a breath. Do you want to get out of here? The girl blinked. She thought she misheard him. What? Escape? I have a plan. Not perfect, but it's something. She stared at him. Escape? No one escaped. Slaves who tried were beaten. Some were killed in front of everyone. Their bodies left hanging as a warning. Are you mad? She whispered. You'll die. Maybe. But I'd rather die running than live forever in chains. The girl shook her head. She wanted to walk away, stop the conversation, but she didn't. Her feet stayed still. Her hands clenched, because deep down, she wanted to run too. That night, he told her more. There was a supply tunnel one the guards used only once a month. It led to a garbage chute outside the camp walls. It's small, dangerous, but if we time it right, we can slip in. She asked, I won't leave without you. Her breath caught in her throat. No one had ever said that before. Not her family. Not the other slaves. No one had ever said, I won't leave without you. The next few days, she watched. Not just Jonah, but the guards. Their habits, their patterns. When they looked, when they didn't, Jonah gave her a stolen metal nail. Hide this, he said. It can unlock small latches, could save your life. She took it. For the first time, she felt something sharp in her hand that wasn't a tool or a weapon used against her. Now, she had something of her own, but doubt still burned in her chest. One night, she asked, what if we fail? Jonah looked at the stars through the cracks in the wall. Then, at least we tried. And maybe, just maybe, others will see us try. And they'll try to. She said nothing. But her silence wasn't fear anymore. It was thinking. One evening, something strange happened. A young slaver boy, maybe 12, was caught stealing a crust of bread. The guards dragged him into the open and beat him. The girl stood frozen. The sound of the boy's screams reminded her of herself. She turned away. But Jonah didn't. He moved forward. Just a step. A guard raised his baton, then stopped. Jonah stared at him, full of fire. I'll take the punishment, he said. Let the boy go. The guards laughed. Why is he your brother? Jonah didn't answer. He didn't have to. His eyes said everything. The baton came down again. Again, the girl didn't look away this time. She couldn't. The guards left. Jonah lay bleeding on the ground. She rushed to him. Why did you do that? He smiled through the pain. Because kindness, it's also a weapon. That night, she made her decision. She leaned close to him. I want to run. I want to escape. Teach me everything." Jonah's eyes lit up not with pride, but with something deeper. Hope. In the days that followed, they began to prepare. In silence, in shadows, a map drawn in dirt. A guard's stolen key code. Moments saved. Patterns remembered. They were still in chains, still beaten, still watched. But something had changed. They were no longer just prisoners. They were dreamers. And in the darkest places, dreams can become whispers. Whispers can become plans, and plans can become freedom. Asterisk, the sky above the mines turned red that morning. Dust clouds hung low, and the wind carried the sharp smell of burning fuel. But underground, no one noticed. The slaves worked. The pain continued. The chains remained. Yet something was different now. The alien girl had changed. She moved with more focus. Her eyes no longer looked at the ground. She watched the guards. She studied every gate, every sound, every moment of silence. Because now, she had a plan, and she had someone who believed in her. Jonah walked beside her, limping slightly from his wounds. But he never complained. He whispered during breaks, "Tonight, we test the path. Just a small test. Not the escape. Just a first step." The girl nodded. Her heart beat faster. Not with fear, but with fire. They would not run yet. First, they would break a rule. A small one. But in a place like this, even the smallest rebellion was a war. That night, after, the guards had eaten and the slaves were locked in. The girl sat awake. Her hands trembled. Her breath was short. She reached under her sleeping mat and pulled out the sharp nail Jonah had given her. "You sure?" he asked from behind the bars. "Yes." She moved quietly, crawled to the side wall. Behind a loose panel was a rusted pipe that led to the supply hallway. Every slave believed it led nowhere, that it was blocked. But Jonah had seen the truth. A small gap, just big enough to slip through. The girl reached in and pulled out a small pouch Jonah had hidden days before. Inside was something stolen, a guard's data card. It wasn't enough to unlock gates, not yet, but it held codes patterns, maybe even access schedules. "We hide it near the exit tunnel next," Jonah whispered. "Then we watch. We wait. When the time is right, we move." Suddenly a noise. Footsteps. A guard doing extra rounds. The girl froze, her fingers wrapped tight around the pouch. Her pulse raced. If the guard turned the corner, if he saw her out of her cage, if he noticed the panel, it would be over. She held her breath, but the footsteps passed. Silence returned. She crawled back, her body shaking. But in her chest, something new. Victory, not big, but real. She had broken a rule. Taken back a piece of her life. The next day, something unexpected happened. A guard found a broken lock near the tool shed. Not theirs, but close. He screamed at the slaves. "Who touched this?" No one answered. The girl kept her face calm. But inside, fear rose. Had they been too loud? Too slow? The guard pulled a young boy from the crowd. The same one Jonah had protected before. "Was it you, Rat?" The boy cried. "No, please." The baton was raised. Jonah stepped forward. It wasn't him. It was me. The guard stared. "You again?" Jonah smiled slightly. "Can't help it. I have curious hands." The guard hit him. Hard, again and again. The girl wanted to scream, but she stood still. She knew what Jonah was doing. He was protecting the mission. Their mission. That night, she cleaned his wounds again. "You didn't have to take the blame." "Yes, I did," he said. "We're close now. If they doubt me, they don't look at you." Her eyes burned. Not with tears, but with something else. Respect. He wasn't just brave. He was smart. Strategic, he believed this fight mattered. "What if we get out?" she asked. "What happens?" "Next? Then we make sure no one else suffers like this again," he replied. Over the next few days, they prepared more. They learned guard shift times. They mapped out blind spots in the cameras. They timed the door cycles on the trash tunnel. Every hour of pain was also an hour of planning. The girl smiled one night, just a little. Jonah noticed, "What's funny? I used to dream of dying," she said. "Now I dream of the stars." The rebellion was still small. Just a pouch hidden in a pipe. Just a broken lock. Just two people who refused to give up. But that was how it always started. Not with an army, not with weapons, but with courage. With one girl and one human daring to say, "This is not the end." The punishment came at sunrise. Heavy footsteps echoed through the cages. Guards marched in, faces angry. One of them threw a broken scanner on the ground. "Someone tampered with this?" he shouted. "You think we're blind?" No one answered. The slaves stood still, breathing slow, eyes on the floor, but the guards were not looking for answers. They were looking for an example. They pulled Jonah out first. The alien girl tried to speak, but another guard raised his weapon. "Quiet, or you're next." They dragged Jonah into the open yard. The sun burned hot on his skin. His hands were tied. His head hung low. But his eyes? His eyes still burned with that same light. The girl watched from her cage. She could do nothing. Her fists were clenched. Her heart was beating like a drum inside her chest. The guards surrounded him. One by one, they hit him. Fists, boots, batons, blood, painted the ground. But Jonah never screamed. He fell, rose, and fell again. But not once did he beg. Not once did he say stop. It was worse than any punishment she had ever seen. And yet, he smiled. Even broken, he smiled. Afterwards, they threw him back into his cage like garbage. The girl rushed to him. His face was swollen. His breath shallow. "Why?" she whispered, tears finally falling. "Why did you take the blame again?" Jonah looked at her. One eye nearly shut, lips cracked. "Because they want to kill the idea. Not just me. If they break me, maybe others will stop believing." The girl held his hand. "But I won't stop," she said. "You hear me? I won't stop." That night, the camp was quiet. But inside her mind, a storm had started. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't stop thinking. She remembered. The first time she met Jonah, his strange kindness, his soft words, his foolish bravery. Now he lay on the ground, bruised and broken, and it was her fault. Her eyes burned. But not from sadness this time. From rage, she stood, walked to the side of the cage, looked up through the metal ceiling. "If there's anything beyond this sky," she whispered, "then give me strength." The next morning, Jonah opened his eyes slowly. The girl was sitting beside him, arms crossed, staring at the wall. "You should have left me," he said weakly. "Too late for that," she replied. "You still want to escape, now more than ever." The guards thought they had one. They beat Jonah. They made the slaves silent again. They believed fear had returned. But in truth, they had done the worst thing they could have. They gave the girl a reason to fight harder. Over the next few days, Jonah could barely move, so the girl took the lead. She memorized schedules. She listened to guard chatter. She counted footsteps and gate clicks. She found a loose vent near the supply hall. Marked it. She even bribed a weak guard with a piece of metal she had hidden for years. The rebellion was alive. And this time, it wore her face. One night Jonah asked her, "Why are you still helping me?" She looked at him. "Because you reminded me that I'm not a tool. I'm not an animal. I'm something more." He smiled again, this time weak, but real. "You are," he said. "You're stronger than all of them." Then came the warning. A new commander was arriving, one known for being crueler than the rest. Rumors spread that he liked public executions. The girl knew they were running out of time. That night, she made a choice. She gathered the old slave who could barely walk. She whispered to the quiet boy who had once been beaten, "When the time comes, follow me. I will get us out." They didn't ask why. They just nodded, because the fire inside her now burned bright enough to light others. Jonah sat in the dark, watching her. "You've become a leader," he said. She turned to him. "No, I've become something I never thought I could be again. Free. Not yet, but close." And though her hands still wore chains and her back still carried scars, she knew something now. They could beat the body. They could silence the voice. But they could not stop the will. Not hers. Not anymore. The night was silent. To silent, no footsteps, no guard voices, no machines, only the hum of power lines and the distant whistle of wind through broken vents. The alien girl crouched behind a wall near the trash tunnel. Her breath was slow, her eyes sharp. It was time behind her. Jonah leaned against the cold wall, his body still weak. His wounds had not healed, but he refused to be left behind. "Tonight or never," he whispered. The plan had changed. The new commander had arrived early. The slaves whispered that he was cruel, colder than metal, and twice as sharp. Executions were coming, maybe tomorrow, so tonight they would run. The girl moved first. She crept past the main hallway, stepped over a sleeping guard, and slipped into the side tunnel. Jonah followed, slower but steady. Every step was a knife in his side, but he kept going. They reached the broken panel, the one near the waste chute. She had loosened it days ago. Now, with a sharp pull, it came off. Behind it, a narrow path, dark and filthy, but open. "Go," she said. Jonah shook his head. "You first." She stared at him. He was shaking, pale, tired, still. He smiled. That same old smile. The one that never gave up, so she crawled in first. Inside the tunnel, the air was thick and rotten. Pipes leaked, metal scraped her skin, but she kept going. Behind her, Jonah crawled slowly, breathing heavy. The path turned right, then dipped down. They had to drop into a chute filled with trash and mud. The smell was awful, but just beyond it, light, faint, flickering. The exit, she pushed forward and reached the grate. It was locked, but rusted. She pulled out the metal nail, the same one Jonah gave her on that first day. Her hands shook. Click. The lock snapped. She opened the grate and stepped outside for the first time in years. The night air hit her face like ice. The stars above were dim but free. Open. She turned. Around Jonah, "We made it." But he didn't answer. He was halfway through the tunnel, coughing. He collapsed against the pipe. She said, running back. "We're almost there." She grabbed him, pulled his arm over her shoulder. He laughed, weakly. "Told you, I'm not as young as I look." "You're not dying here," she said, voice shaking. "Not after everything." They stumbled out of the tunnel together, her feet slipping, his legs dragging. But they moved. Suddenly, an alarm. A flashing red light behind them. The guards had found the broken panel. "They're coming," Jonah said, voice low. "We're not stopping," she replied. They ran through dust fields, over rocks, toward the far fence. Gunshots behind them, shouts. She pulled Jonah faster. Her legs burned. Her heart screamed. The fence was ahead. Beyond it, dark hills, freedom. But the fence was electric. She had one chance. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the stolen guard card. Please work, she whispered. Beep, the gate clicked. She pushed it open. They stumbled through. Jonah collapsed on the ground, gasping. We did it. He breathed, but she turned. The guards were running. Lights flashing. They had seconds. She dragged Jonah behind a boulder, covered him with her body. Bullets flew past, but they didn't stop. A sharp pain hit her leg. She cried out, but stayed down. The guards came closer. Then a sound, loud, from above. A ship. A smuggler's ship. Probably dropping off supplies or picking up metal scraps. She screamed, waved her arms. Blood soaked her pants. The ship turned. Moved toward her. A bright light shined down. The guards stopped. The ship landed fast. A hatch opened. A voice shouted, "Get in!" She pulled Jonah up with the last of her strength. Together, they climbed inside. The hatch closed. The ship lifted. The guards disappeared below, and just like that, they were free. Inside the ship, she collapsed, her body shaking, her hands still covered in blood and dirt. Jonah lay beside her, breathing, alive. She looked at him. He looked back. No words were spoken. None were needed. Tears rolled down her cheeks, not from fear, not from pain, but from something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Later, as they flew through the stars, Jonah sat beside her, bandages on his arms. His face pale but smiling. "You saved me," he said. She looked out the window. "You saved me first." They sat in silence, watching the stars, watching the darkness fade. Somewhere out there, the world was waiting. Somewhere, a new life could begin. The stars looked different now, brighter, softer, like they had been waiting. The ship moved silently through space, leaving the slave planet far behind. No alarms, no guards, no chains, only silence. Inside the ship, the alien girl sat beside a small window. Her leg was bandaged. Her arms were bruised. But she didn't care. She was free. For the first time in her life. Truly free. Jonah lay in a sleep pod nearby, breathing slowly. He needed rest. The wounds were deep. His body had taken more than it could handle. But he was alive, and she had brought him back. The girl sat in silence, watching him. She remembered how he looked on the first day, chained, beaten, yet smiling. A foolish man with hope, and now that foolish hope had saved them both. She touched the side of the window. Her reflection stared back at her, still pale, still scarred, but different. There was something in her eyes now, something new, strength, the ship's pilot. A gray-bearded smuggler entered the room. "We'll reach the outer colonies in a few hours," he said. "After that, you're on your own." She nodded. "You're lucky I was nearby," he added, shaking his head. "What were you running from?" She looked up at him, calm. "Slavery." He paused, then said nothing more. Some stories didn't need words. Hours passed. The girl cleaned Jonah's wounds again, gave him water. Whispered words he might not hear. "You didn't give up on me," she said, "so I won't give up on you." Suddenly, his eyes blinked open. Weak, but awake. He smiled. "You're still here," he said. Of course, he tried to sit up. She helped him. "We made it, didn't we?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, we did." The ship landed on a quiet moon. A small colony of traders and settlers lived there. No empire, no war, no whips, just people. Jonah and the girl stepped off the ship together. The ground was warm. The sky had two suns. She closed her eyes, let the light touch her skin. It didn't burn like the mines. It felt soft. Healing, they walked into the colony. Side by side, strangers watched them. Some stared at her alien face. Others looked at Jonah's wounds, but no one stopped them. They were just two travelers now. No past, no chains. They found a small room to rent. It was nothing more than a bed and a window, but it was theirs. Jonah sat on the bed, still sore. The girl looked out the window again. This time, she didn't see stars, she saw tomorrow. That evening, Jonah asked her a question he had asked once before. "Do you remember your name?" She hesitated. Then, for the first time in years, she spoke it. "Oren," he smiled. "Oren, it suits you." She almost smiled too. Almost a few weeks passed. Jonah healed. Slowly, Oren found work helping local. Traders moved supplies. She was quiet, but strong. The people respected her, even if they didn't understand her. Every night, she returned to their small room. Jonah would be waiting. They would eat, talk, rest, sometimes in silence. Sometimes with stories. Sometimes they would both just stare out the window. Side by side, saying nothing because nothing needed to be said. They were free, but freedom is never easy. One day, a message came to the colony. A bounty alert, a ship, had been stolen from a mining planet. 2 fugitives had escaped. Wanted, 1 human. 1 alien female. High reward. The trader who received it frowned but said nothing. He liked them. They worked hard. They caused no trouble. But still, he remembered the message, and someone else might report them. That night, Oren sat on the rooftop, watching the stars again. Jonah joined her, sitting slowly beside her. "They're still looking for us," he said. "I know. What do we do?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "We stay quiet. We keep moving. And if they come," she turned to him, eyes burning. "We fight." Jonah smiled. "You've changed. You changed me." Oren stood up, looked at the night sky open wide, full of unknown places. She wasn't a slave anymore. She wasn't afraid. She was a UREN, and her story wasn't over. Not yet, because in every shadow of the past, a light had started to shine, and as long as that light burned inside her, a new dawn would always come.